Now that you know GAS can build up web app, GAS can make use of Sheets API to do data storage. Now, imagine, or not imagine, you have already have your project groups or formed already, and just imagine, right? If you were to make use of GAS to conduct your project work, what are or how can you or what do you think? In what way can GAS help you build your IoT project? We have real-time monitoring, right? Here, the real-time monitoring would be valid if your web app supports the monitoring part, right? So based on what I've showed you in the previous few slides is about data collection, right? More of a data storage because whatever sent by the client is stored within Sheets. In order to have monitoring, it requires additional functionality from your web app. In this case, you need to come up with other or additional JavaScript to call out data from your Google Sheets so that the data can be sent back to whoever is requesting. For example, if you are monitoring your, let me see, if you are monitoring your home temperature, for example, your MKR with the temperature sensor can be sending data to Google Sheets. In order for you to monitor the data or the temperature of your house, then your Google Sheets, your GAS will need to be able to recognize that you are requesting for updates. Then your GAS have to extract data from your Google Sheets and send back to this particular client. Okay, so monitoring require one more step, which I have not shown in the example code. So if you are doing monitoring, you have to learn how to make use of the Sheets API and to learn about how to extract data from your cells. And that part requires you to do some reading and some work. Next, automated workflow. All right, good. GAS allows automated workflow. If your workflow is for data storage, in my earlier example, they are already showing you how to do data storage. If you need to do analysis, part of your workflow requires analysis, then in your web app, you need to build up your analysis tool. For example, if you are trying to do statistical study of your data, then you might want to have average functions to be part of your web app to do averaging or to find the mean, find the maximum and so on within your data. So that part, yes, GAS can help you with the automation, but beyond data storage, you have to read up on what are those workflow that you need and develop on your own. With regards to GAS, yeah, I think your friend is typing halfway through. So sorry that I cut you off. In view of time, I have to stop the entry. What else can you do? All right, for those who have used Excel spreadsheet before, you realize that you can generate graph, you can do charting and so on. Similarly, right, since we are using Google Sheets as part of the endpoint, where we use Sheets to store data, you can also, part of your analysis, all right, part of the workflow, create your graph functions within Sheets so that anytime that you open up your Google Sheets, it can present to you those graphical representative of your data, right? If you are trying to do modeling of your temperature profile and so on, those are the things you can add on within Sheets itself. Okay, let's move on. So in terms of GAS and IoT, how can we extend to embedded system? Okay, this is the part that I would like to highlight to draw similarities. So let us look back at ThinkSpeed, which you have done. If I recall correctly, in week 6, remember in week 6, before the recess week, you set up a ThinkSpeed account, you learn about the API functions, you copy the URL and do that. We discuss about API keys as security and protection, only with keys that you can do update. If your channels are public, then you don't need the read key. But if your channels are set as private, then you need the read key and so on. All right, so these are the things that is happening. And I have asked you to use this ThinkSpeed library to interact with ThinkSpeed. There are some things that you cannot do because the API, the web API developed by ThinkSpeed can be quite restrictive in certain way. Therefore, now that you see how ThinkSpeed has built up, what about moving on with GAS? Can we do something similar? Okay, first of all, we will need to develop your web app. Unlike in ThinkSpeed already come out with their web API. So when you are developing your own web app, you have to ask yourself, how are you going to collect data? But you have learned earlier the use of the do get, the E notation, and so on. Therefore, you have to come up with your own syntax. What is your format that you would like to have so that you can then inform your web client, so in this case, or your bots or your group members to follow these particular standards. Next, how to use your Google Sheets API for data storage, which I've showed you in the example codes earlier. For your friends' input like monitoring, then you have to learn which particular API functions can help you retrieve data. Okay, you can even go to the extent to use Google Sheets API to do formatting, to change color of the cells and so on, to include chart and etc. But this bit of things, I'll leave it to the group. If you think this is necessary for your project work you want to implement, please carry on and explore on your own. All right, so this bit I would point you to the official link which I've given previously. So without a library, so far I have to admit I have been searching for libraries to support GAS. So far I've not seen any. If any one of you chance upon a library for GAS, do let me know. Okay, so without a library, of course I will not leave you alone to explore or swim in the big ocean. What I've done here is to share with you that there are certain things that you can make use of. All right, we don't have to start from scratch. Since there's no GAS library available, at least based on my search previously, maybe there are new ones coming along, so do let me know. So if there isn't any, then how can we start? Okay, so this is the Wi-Fi Nina library. Within Wi-Fi Nina library, remember week 1, you have played with AP Simple Web Server, then you have a Wi-Fi web server that you execute in week 1. In fact, within this example code, there are a few things that we can make use of. All right, so what are those things that we can make use of? We can make use of the Wi-Fi web client repeating to constantly send data and so on. And let me see. End of the day, to connect to Google, you must use Wi-Fi SSL client, right? Wi-Fi SSL client. SSL, probably your second time hearing this because last week we talked about secure connection. This time, you are seeing SSL again. So this particular example, Wi-Fi SSL, okay, maybe I should circle it up so that you pay attention. Okay, SSL client is meant to be made use of to connect to Google. Because Google server is very stringent, it does not allow insecure connection, right? Therefore, the only, where's my laser pointer? The only app that allows you to connect to Google has to be this Wi-Fi SSL client. Okay. Okay. Back to GAS. Google server does come with certain restriction, although we can use it for free. But the restriction, all right, is really meant to protect everyone, everyone experience, because just like ThinkSpeed I've explained to you, if everyone were to be wildfully updating or sending data to the server at lightning speed, it can cause traffic jam, right? Therefore, there are certain restrictions in terms of how fast the server responds. And for our project work, whatever restriction they have are deemed as reasonable. They will not cripple your application. Therefore, it shouldn't be too worried about all this, all right? Next, if you are keen to find out about these limits and quotas, you can read up this link. I hope that there isn't new update. Generally, the quotas are quite relaxed. You can actually do a lot with this free access. Okay, just now I talked about secure connection. So do take note, you cannot, how should I put it? You cannot connect to Google server in an insecure manner. Okay, so let me just go back again. So do take note, this part, I'm leaving this gap. You will be trying this on your own within your group. So go and explore how to make use of this. In our lab activity, I will probably get you to try out the web client repeating for the time being. Okay, so Okay, this part we'll talk more in our lectorial sessions. Okay, with this, this marks the end of sharing some of the key features about GAS, the use of do-get function to convert standalone GAS into a web app, and then subsequently I talk about the Google Sheets API. How can you extend GAS functionality to interact with Google Sheets? And then finally, sharing with you how can you then make use of some example codes for your MKR, and then finally highlighting some of the restriction or limitation that you need to pay attention to. At least you know that there are some restrictions, not going to be detrimental, but at least you know if you need to really go beyond, you have to then get more features from Google. This is especially so if you are developing e-commerce, IoT infrastructure for thousands of items, then every millisecond or even microsecond become very important, and that is where it will trigger the need to elevate your account.